The Gemara on the bottom of Peiches Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. You have two porches that are near each other that are in a courtyard. There's a courtyard, and what we're talking about over here is there's a cesspool. And there's a cesspool that has to be used to throw down the wastewater. So what it said in the Mishnah is that if a person living in one apartment had a cesspool for himself, he's allowed to throw out his wastewater. If the other person did not make a cesspool for himself, he cannot throw out his wastewater into that cesspool that the other person made. Omar Rava says, Rava, Eiruvin, even if these two people made an Erev Chatzeris together, they still can't share the cesspool. Omar Abaye, my time. What's the reason? Why not? Because you worry that there's too much water. The whole problem with dumping out your water into a cesspool is that it goes into the Reshus HaRabim. So you're going to have too much water now that two different people are pouring into the cesspool, so it's going to flow over into the Reshus HaRabim. But that's not a problem, because Vatanya, Braisa says, Achas li uka, whether you have a cesspool, Achas li gistera, or if you don't have a cesspool, but you have this broken piece of earthenware that you use like as a place to dump your water, or brecha, a small pool, Vareva, or a big bowl. Even if they're already overflowed with water from before Shabbos, you're allowed to throw the water into it on Shabbos. Why? What's the reason? Because if you have this cesspool that's large enough and you're dumping your water into it, your kavanah is not that the water should go into the Reshus HaRabim. Your kavanah is to throw it into the cesspool and the water should be absorbed there. If it ends up flowing out into the Reshus HaRabim, it doesn't matter. That wasn't your kavanah. Chazal weren't geyser then. They were only geyser if a person dumps his water without a cesspool in a way that it's going to go into the Reshus HaRabim. He wants it to go directly into the Reshus HaRabim. But as long as you have a cesspool there, it doesn't matter. So even if there's two people using the same cesspool, it shouldn't matter. Ella says the Gemara, this is what Rava said. Omar Rava, Leishanu, Ella Shalo Yervu. It's only if the people over here did not make an Erev Chatzeris, so then they can't use, they said one person cannot use the other person's cesspool. But if they made an Erev Chatzeris together, Shalo Yervu. Aval Irvu Metarin. If they made an Erev Chatzeris, then it's allowed. So Taisus over here explains, wait a minute, if they did not make an Erev Chatzeris, and it's not only the person that doesn't have a cesspool shouldn't be allowed, the other person shouldn't be allowed either, because he didn't make an Erev Chatzeris. If there's no Erev Chatzeris, and where's the cesspool? Downstairs in the Chatzah, which is shared by both of these people, they didn't make an Erev Chatzeris. How could anybody use the cesspool? So Taisus explains, look on the top line of Taisus. They should both be yasa. Taisus says the case over here is they're not dumping the water directly into the cesspool. You're dumping the water, let's say, on your porch. For example, a person maps his house, he dumps the water on the porch, and from the porch it flows down into the cesspool. So that's what the Mishnah was speaking about. So the person that owns this cesspool, he's allowed to do that, because he's not going down, he's not pouring it directly into the cesspool. But the other person that did not make it, he's not allowed, because he didn't make an Erev Chatzeris. Here Chazal wa geyser. So the Gemara now asks the question: so if they did not make an Erev Chatzeris, what's the problem? If the person that made the cesspool is allowed, why? Because he's not pouring it directly into the cesspool. He's pouring the water on his porch, and it's flowing down. Same thing with the other person. Even if he didn't make an Erev Chatzeris, he's not using the cesspool directly. He's pouring out his water on the porch, and it's flowing down. So it should also be allowed. And says the Gemara, there's a gzeira. Omar Ravashi, Gzeire, Dilma, Osila, Fuki, Moni, the Batim Lahosam. The Gzeire is the person that did not make a cesspool might carry out pails of his wastewater downstairs to where the cesspool is, and that's not allowed. You didn't make an Erev Chatzeris. So again, Taisus explains, the person that made a cesspool probably made it right under his porch, in a place that it's convenient for him to pour out his water, and it's going to flow straight into the cesspool. So we're not geyser that he's going to carry out a pail of water downstairs. The other person, he's a neighbor, the next porch over, for him to pour out his water from the porch, he has to throw it further down. So he might walk downstairs and pour out his wastewater directly into the cesspool. So then he's going into the Chatzah, and they did not make an Erev Chatzeris. That's why it's a problem. Hadran, Allah, Keitzad Mishtatvin. No, I asked yesterday. No, it's not, because today, whatever sewage system we have when we flush the toilet goes out under the Reshus HaRabim. Right? Which was mentioned. Yeah, it was mentioned before. When you have a sewage system that's covered.
Not this specific.
We had it before. Correct. Okay, we begin a new Pedic, which is also a continuation of the halachas of Erev Chatzeris. But over here, this Pedic discusses carrying from one rooftop to another rooftop, or one chutzah to another chutzah. Part of the whole concept of Erev Chatzeris is, there's the original takana of Erev Chatzeris, which is that, which comes actually from Shlomo HaMelech. He was misaken not to carry from a house into a chutzah. And the reason is because the house is owned and used privately, and the chutzner is shared by many people, so it's similar to carrying from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim. So you can come to confuse Rishus HaYachid and Rishus HaRabim and think that that's allowed. But then there's an additional gzeira that Chachamim made later, that you're also not allowed to carry from one house to another house. Any two Rishus HaYachids, from one house to another house, from one chutzah to another chutzah, you're not allowed to carry. However, as we'll see in this Mishnah, that's only this gzeira not to carry from one chutzah to another chutzah is only if the things that you have in the chutzah, when Shabbos came in, they were in the house. And then it was brought into the house, into the chutzah. Then you're not allowed to take it from one chutzah to another chutzah. But taking it from one chutzah to another chutzah, anything that was there in the chutzah when Shabbos came in is allowed. Let's see in the Mishnah. Kol gagoy seir, you have rooftops in a city, houses that are attached to each other and they have rooftops together. Rishus achas, they're all like one rishus, so you're allowed to carry from one to another. So again, even though usually there's a gzeira not to carry from one courtyard that's owned by one person to another courtyard, but you're allowed to carry from one to another. Why is this? Because Rashi here explains, ein tashmishon todir. It's not a place where you use constantly and permanently the way you use your house. To carry from one house to another house, you have to have an Erev Chatzeris. To carry from one chutzah to another chutzah, you don't have to have an Erev Chatzeris. Again, as long as we're talking about items that were there in that chutzah when Shabbos came in. And over here, the same thing with rooftops. Bulvad, however, there's a condition to this. You shouldn't have one roof that's higher or lower than the other roof that's near it, 10 tefachim. Divrei Rab Meir. This is Rab Meir's opinion. Chachamim say no. Kol echad ve'echad rishus b'fnei atzmai. Just like there's the gzeira of Erev Chatzeris between one house and another, the same halach of Erev Chatzeris also applies between one chatzar and another. You have to have between one chatzar and another, between one gag and another gag, you have to make an Erev Chatzeris. Each one is a rishus for itself. Rab Shimon says, echad gagois, whether it's roofs, rooftops, echad chatzeros, courtyard, echad karfifos, which is a storage area, rishus achasein lekelim sheshofs l'seichan. They're all considered to be like one rishus. So Rab Shimon is arguing on the point that Rab Meir said that you have to have, it has to be level and not 1/10 tefachim higher than the other. Rab Shimon disagrees with that. Another point Rab Shimon disagrees with, Rab Meir was saying you can carry from one rooftop to another, from one chutzah to another. But Rab Shimon is saying you can carry from a rooftop to a chutzah, from a chutzah to a karfif, any outdoor area. Any outdoor area you can carry from one to another without an Erev Chatzeris, because it's a place which doesn't have a constant dira for a person. It's more aray degiyu, so they didn't make the gzeira there. Then we're holding reshus achasen lekelim sheshofsu l'seichan, but the loy lekelim sheshofsu b'seichabayis. If you had your kalim that were in the house when Shabbos came in, those things you're not going to be allowed to carry into another chutzah because your house is the main area where a person lives, and that's separate from another chutzah, so that you're not allowed to carry without an Erev Chatzeris. But from one chutzah to another, or even from a chutzah to a gag, from a gag to a karfif, in any outdoor area, you're allowed without an Erev Chatzeris. So the Gemara starts explaining first Rab Meir's opinion of the Mishnah. Yosef Abaye Baravim Rab Chanina Baravim Yosef Abaye Gabayu. So they were sitting, and Abaye was with them, and they were saying as follows. What's the pshat in Rab Meir? Bishleim Rabbanon. We understand the Rabbanon's opinion. Savri, the Rabbanon hold, Kishem Shidiyurin Chalukin Lamata. Just like you have separate dwellings in the houses below, with walls separating them, and it's two permanent separate dwellings, and therefore they have to make an Erev Chatzeris to carry from one to the other. Kach Diyurin Chalukin Lamayla. Same thing also on the rooftops. They're considered to be separated as well, and therefore they have to make a Erev Chatzeris. But what's the opinion of Rab Meir? El Rab Meir, my kasava. If he would agree to this concept, that just like it's separated below, it's separated on the rooftop as well, how would Rab Meir say that all the rooftops are one rishus? If he holds that the separation that there is indoors, downstairs. It doesn't apply upstairs on the rooftop. Again, because it's above. So therefore, it's one rishos. What difference does it make if you have a height of one rooftop that's more than the other? Why should that height make any difference? That it has to be level. Why? So Abaye answers, did you not hear this gzeira that Rav Meir said? The Omer Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi said, the gzeira of Rav Meir, Rav Meir, when you find two different reshuyos, but they're the same kind of reshus. What does that mean? So he gives you the example right away. You have a big nice courtyard, which is a reshus yachid. Inside your reshus yachid, you have another platform, another area that's 10 tvachim high and 4 tvachim wide. A reshus yachid within a reshus yachid. Okay. So what's the halacha here? Says Rav Meir, Aser lekatif olav. You're not allowed to take anything from your reshus yachid and place it on this platform. Why? Gzeirim shemtel b'reshus rabim. Because this could happen also in a reshus rabim, where you have a reshus rabim with a platform in the middle, and that platform in the middle of the reshus rabim and reshus yachid. If you're going to allow to take an item from the reshus yachid into another reshus yachid in there, you might come to confuse and do the same thing in the reshus yachid. This was Rav Meir's gzeira. Hachanami, if so, over here as well, carrying from one rooftop to another rooftop, if they're not level, if the other rooftop is 10 tvachim higher, so even though it's like one and same reshus yachid, he says the reshus achas same, but because it stands out as a separate reshus because of its height, we're geyser that if you're going to allow the person to do that, a person will also come to make this mistake in the reshus harabim.
I mean, I'm not allowed to use the table here in the room.
That's correct. Maybe correct. We don't paskin. Maybe in a indoors it's different because in indoors there's a concept of tikra yered b'saisim, that the rooftop or a basic command the malyadomi in a house, different levels of height don't matter. But in outdoors, this is the opinion of Rav Meir. If you have any outdoors, chatzar, shusa yachid, but you have another area that's tall enough to be like a separate shus because it's 10 tvachim high, you're not allowed. Now we obviously don't paskin like Rav Meir. That's why you never heard of this gzeira. Okay, as Taisus over here points out, even though usually we do paskin like Rav Meir, but in this gzeira we don't paskin like Rav Meir. That's why you never heard of this.
You can't use your sukkah.
Huh?
Can't use your sukkah.
Okay. So
what happens if it's not 10 tefachim?
If it's not 10 tefachim, so it's not tall enough to be considered like a separate reshus, right? Within 10 tefachim. But if it would be 10 tefachim, Rav Meir is geyser. That's the same reason why if the two rooftops are not level, you can't carry from one to the other. So now the Gemara goes further in Rav Meir's gzeira. We're holding over here. Savim, we thought that this gzeira of Rav Meir, afil machteshes, even if you have a machteshes, a mortar, afil a gigis, a barrel, which is 10 tefachim tall, would also be an issue to take from your reshus hayachid and put it on top of it. It's like a separate reshus. They made this gzeira. Abaye says no. Hochi omamar. Rav Meir was only referring to things that are more permanent, like a platform or a pole and an amasarichaim, the base of a mill, but not things that are more temporary that you can move around. Those are things that a person establishes a place for them. Okay, so this is the pshat of Rav Meir in our Mishnah. The Gemara, if this is the pshat of Rav Meir in our Mishnah, that's why the rooftops have to be level. Not mamish level. Let me just correct that. It can't be 10 tvachim higher. How about between two courtyards? Just like Rav Meir in the Mishnah says that you're allowed to carry from one rooftop to another, you're also allowed to carry from one courtyard to another without an erev chatzeres. So, but there's a wall in between. The kavua, that wall is permanently there. Rav Yehuda said regarding Rav Meir's opinion in the Mishnah, if you're gonna analyze the words of Rav Meir carefully, so Rav Meir, according to Rav Meir's opinion, Gagen reshus la'atzman, all these rooftops are one reshus, chatzeres reshus la'atzman, all chatzeres are like one reshus that you can carry from one to another, karfifas reshus la'atzman, you can carry in karfifa storage area from one to another. My love, don't you think this means the shari little tuli derech kaisel? You can carry from one courtyard to another, even over a wall, because it's outdoors, and any place outdoors he allows it. But according to Rav Meir, we just said that if you have a platform, it becomes like a separate rishos. If the rooftop is 10 tvachim higher from another rooftop, it's like a separate rishos. So why isn't the wall considered to be a separation? A wall 10 tvachim high. Rav Yehuda, Rav Sheishes, Loi, no, Rav Meir did not say this when the place where there's a wall. You can only carry from one courtyard to another if there's a door, if there's an opening in between. And you didn't make an Erev Chatzeris. But to taka go over the wall, Rav Meir would be geyser that it's not allowed. Just like when you have two rooftops that one is taller, 10 tvachim from the other. Okay, now we go to the Chacham's opinion of the Mishnah. Each rooftop is a separate rishus, just like indoors, going from one house to another, from one apartment to another. You have to make an Erev Chatzeris. Going from one rooftop to another, from one courtyard to another, you have to make an Erev Chatzeris. So here there's the machlokes. Rav and Shmuel. Itma says Rav Amar, Ei metaltelim boy ela bedal damas. Within each rooftop, you could only carry 4 amas. Why? Because the halacha is, if your rooftop is open to another area that it's also to you to carry on, not only is it going to be also to you to carry into that area, but because it's open to another area that it's also to you to carry to, it asks also to carry within this area more than 4 amas. That's Rav's opinion. Shmuel says no. You're allowed to carry within this rooftop. You're allowed to carry in the entire area, even though l'chayr it's open to another area, and l'chayr everybody agrees that if it's open to another area that it's also to carry to, that should also ask you to carry within this area 4 amas. But nevertheless, Shmuel says that in your rooftop you're allowed to carry as much as you want. You're only not allowed to carry from one rooftop to another. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain Shmuel's opinion. Or really, the Gemara is going to explain when they're arguing. And here we're going to come to the concept of good asik, imaginary mechitzas. We had already imaginary mechitzas in the previous Perek many times, but over there we were talking about imaginary mechitzas that you extend downward. We spoke about the mechitzas that go down into the water, that good achis. The word achis means it comes down. Over here we're going to talk about imaginary mechitzas going up. The walls of the house, to imagine as if those walls extend upward. So now the question is, between one rooftop and another rooftop, you don't have any wall separating them. However, in the apartments below, there are walls that separate one from another, one house from another. So could we consider those walls that are on the bottom as if it extends upward, separating one roof from another, to allow each rooftop to carry in their area as much as they want? That's what we're going to talk about here. Zok the Gemara Azai. If there are recognizable mechitzas from the bottom that you can see separating one house of the other, the kula amalei pligi. Nobody's going to argue that those mechitzas, we imagine that they extend upward to separate one rooftop from another. So let's see the picture of mechitzas anikares. This is going to be over here in picture Tov Kuf Chav Vav, page Ayin Beis Tov Kuf Chav Vav. So you see the rooftops are separated one from another, even mamash amashu. That doesn't mention any amount. If they're separated from each other a little bit, so the wall separating one house from another is nicker. So therefore, those walls extend upward. We imagine as if it extends upward to separate one rooftop from another. That's mechitzas anikares. But kipligi, when are they arguing? B'mechitzas she'ein anikares, which is the next picture. When you have the houses that are attached to each other, and there's no recognizable wall that you can see when you're standing on the rooftop. So over here, that's the shaila. Do I use the concept of good asik? Do I imagine that the mechitzas extend upward when I can't even see them? Rav Amar, ein metalton bayel bedal dames. You could only carry within 4 ames. Loi amrinon good asik mechitzte. In such a case, I don't apply this concept of imaginary walls that go up. Shmuel Amar, mutal talton bekuloi. You're still allowed to carry in your whole area of your roof the Amar good asik mechitzte. I imagine as if the walls are extending upward without having the separation of the rooftops. You can't even notice it, but those walls are there. And the rule of good asik applies even if you can't see it.
What if it's different color and roof?
That doesn't matter, because the wall has to extend upward. So now let's see the lashon of Chachamim himself in the Mishnah. The Chachamim Maimrim. Chachamim said, Kol ach echad ve'echad rishus la'atzmai. Each wall, each rooftop, that is, from each house, is a rishus for itself. That's the lashon that they use. Rishus la'atzmai. So now, what's the meaning of Reshus La'atzmai? Bishloi Shmuel Niche. This expression of Reshus La'atzmai, according to Shmuel, that says you can carry as much as you want in this area, makes sense. Reshus La'atzmai means that in your Reshus you can do whatever you want. But Elul Rav Kashya, according to Rav, why is it using the term Reshus La'atzmai? Even for there's a limitation even for yourself. Not only could you not carry from one rooftop to another, but there's even a limitation in your own Reshus. So why is he saying Reshus La'atzmai? Answers the Gemara. Omri Beirav, in the yeshiva of Rav, they said Mishmei de Rav, in the name of Rav, Shelo Yetaltel Beis Ames Begag Zeh U Beis Ames Begag Zeh. The meaning of Reshus La'atzmai means that you could only carry 4 Ames, and those 4 Ames only within your Reshus, not 2 Ames in your Reshus and 2 Ames in the other person's Reshus. That's what it means, but the limitation of 4 Ames is there. Sagt the Gemara weiter, Rabbi Lazar, but Rabbi Lazar said, Ki yavinun beBavel. When we were in Bavel, so Havamrinan be Rav, Mishmei de Rav, by the yeshiva of Rav, they would say Rav's opinion. So the Omri, they would say, Eimetaltlum by Elevadal Damas. In these rooftops, when the houses are attached, you can't carry only in Dal Ramas. And Vahani de Be Shmuel and Button, the yeshiva of Shmuel, they would say, we have a Braisa. Tanu, they quoted a Braisa, Ein Lohen Elo Gagon, that each rooftop has their roof to carry in. You can't carry from one roof to another, but you have your roof to carry in. What is the meaning of this brayse? They only have their rooftop to carry in. Lav, don't you think it means this shari little tuli bikule, that every rooftop has its roof to carry in? So this is a question. This brayse that the yeshiva of Shmuel would quote is a question on Rav's opinion. Says the Gemara, Umiya lime masnisen daikimne shalei taltel shtei ames begagzeh shtei ames begagzeh. Is the language of this brayse any stronger a proof against Rav than the language of the Mishnah? The language of the Mishnah said each gag is a reshus for itself. And we said what that means is that you shouldn't carry 2 ames in one reshus and 2 ames in another reshus. Over here as well, when it says Shalo Yataltel Elo Gagon, what does that mean? Beis ames begagzeh and Beis ames begagzeh. You shouldn't carry 2 ames in one reshus and 2 ames in another reshus, and one gag and another gag. But there's no raya from this brayse against Rav. Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, Loi Shmieli Ha Shmaita. I did not hear this opinion of Shmuel. Never heard that Shmuel said such a thing, that there's this concept of good asik, imaginary mechitzas that come up, and even when it's not nicker, even when you can't see those mechitzas, it still comes up and you could carry in the whole roof. I never heard this. So this is, again, we had this for some reason in Masechta Eiruvin, you have this more than in any other Masechta in Shas, where Rav Yosef forgets what he said, or sometimes it turns out that he's right, but sometimes it turns out that he's not. He wasn't feeling well, so he forgot different things. They said, I never heard this. Amalei Abaye, says Abaye to Rav Yosef, At Omrit Ne'elon, you yourself told us this opinion of Shmuel, that you say good asik even when it's not noticeable. V'aha Omrit Ne'elon, and you told us this regarding the following Mishnah. This is a Mishnah that comes soon over here in this Pedic. Gag, Godel, Hasamoch, Legag, Lekotn. So this is, again, if you take a look in the pictures of what we're talking about. We're talking about 2 rooftops that are near each other. One rooftop is larger and one rooftop is smaller. Okay, so which picture is it over here? This is going to be picture Tov Kuf Chav Ches. Okay, so what's the halacha? So the Mishnah says, Hagadol muter v'hakotn aser. The large roof you're allowed to carry, and the small roof is not allowed to carry. Why? So look in the picture. This is all based on the concept of good asik, imaginary mechitzas. The large roof, if you raise up the walls of the entire house, so you have walls that are surrounding the whole roof. Now that area where the small and the large roof are attached to each other, it's not nicker. Over there the mechitzas are not nicker, so you can't raise up the wall over there. Right? So in the large roof, you have enough coming around on all 4 sides to be able to carry there. The small roof, on the 4th side, it's totally attached, completely attached to the large roof. So on the 4th side, you can't raise up any of the mechitza, so you only have 3 mechitzas around it. Then it's totally open to the large roof. So therefore you can't carry there at all. That's the difference between the large roof and the small roof. Now, that's the Mishnah. And now Rav Yosef quoted us on this Mishnah. Rav Yudah Mashmuel Loi Shanu. When did we say that in the small roof you're not allowed to carry? When there's people living on the small roof and on the large roof, there's a lot of people living there. In other words, people are constantly walking across. People are walking across in this area. The havila ha the cotton mechitza nidreses. So now, even if you're going to have this imaginary wall that comes up between the small roof and the large roof, but nevertheless, when you have so much people walking across that area, we don't consider it to be an imaginary wall because people are walking through. So they step on that imaginary wall, so to speak. So it doesn't work. If you don't have these people walking across, then shnei mutarim. Then each one can carry in their own rooftop. Why? Because of the imaginary walls that come up. So how do you have these imaginary walls coming up? The two roofs are attached to each other. So over here you see that Shmuel said, even though the two roofs are attached to each other and they're not mechitzas hanikarais, the walls from the house and the bottom are not noticeable, nevertheless we extend the wall, or we imagine good asik that the wall comes up. So you, Shmuel, told us this halacha. Amalei, so Rav Yosef says, no, I never said this. I said something else. This is what I told you. We're actually talking about a rooftop that has a real, not imaginary, has a real mechitza surrounding it. That's in picture Tov Kuf Lamed Aleph. Oh, they have the picture also for the Gemara before. You see in Tov Kuf Chav Tes and Tov Kuf Lamed that people are walking through, so therefore it doesn't allow for the imaginary mechitzas to be considered that it's coming up. Okay, picture Tov Kuf Lamed Aleph. So you have the imaginary, not imaginary, real mechitzas that are surrounding the entire rooftop. Okay, so you have basically a large courtyard, a large rooftop, and a small rooftop that's open to it. So Rav Yosef is saying that's what I was talking about. Huh? Yeah, a proper mechitza.
I need any mechitzas if it's 10 above the ground.
Right, okay, but over here, because the houses are attached to each other, so therefore the mechitza over there is incomplete. On the fourth side, it doesn't allow the mechitzas to come up. Sagt the Gemara, where are we over here? So there's a wall around both of them. The gadol mishteri bigifufi. The walls that are surrounding the bigger chatzer is going to be allowed to carry. Why? Because it has a mechitza that's surrounding it on all four sides. And there's the gifufi. What is the gifufi? The sides. On the sides, it also, even on the fourth side, it has mechitzas on the side. The cotton nifretz b'miluai. But the small chatzer is completely open to the other chatzer. Right? So the bigger rooftop is like separated. It has its own chatzer, and even though it's open to the small chatzer, again, the halacha, this is all based on another halacha. It's not only about the fact that it has the proper height and therefore it's a proper reshus hayachid, but there's another halacha. When you have one area that's open to another area that's asur to you, so then the very fact that it's open to that area asks you as well to carry even in your own area. So over here you have the larger rooftop. It's completely open to the smaller chatzer, to the smaller part of the rooftop. But it's not completely open. Why not? Because the larger rooftop has the walls on the side that's separated from the small chatzer. That's the smallest rooftop, gifufi. But the cotton, if it's bimiluai, the smaller rooftop is completely open to the larger rooftop. And it doesn't have anything on the fourth side. That's when there is a full wall. Aval ein mechitza lo yal zeh v'lo yal zeh. When there's no mechitza on either one of them, shneim asurim. They're both going to be asur. Because one is open to the other. When one is open to the other, so then they're both going to be completely asur. So the Gemara, Abaye asks back to Abaye, but v'ha diyurin amrit lam. I remember you told us something about diyurin. Now you're telling me that you were speaking about walls. I remember you telling me about the fact that there are people living there. That's what you told us. Like he said before, that there's imaginary walls and people are living there and they're walking across these imaginary walls. This is not what you told us. So Rav Yosef says, amri lechu diyurin. If I said to you something about people living there, hachi amri lechu. This is what I said to you. If you have a wall that's surrounding the entire area, a wall that you can live in, and surrounding the big roof and the small roof, so then I say, God, as we explained before, the larger rooftop will be mutter, because even on the fourth side, it has the walls on the side of it, the kat nifretz b'miluai, and the smaller rooftop is totally open to the large chatzah. Aval, however, yesh mechitza ruya l'dira ala gadol, if you only have a wall surrounding the larger rooftop, ve'ein mechitza ruya l'dira ala cotton, and the smaller rooftop doesn't have anything any wall surrounding it. They don't have a picture for this, but the case is simple. The larger rooftop has a wall, and the smaller rooftop does not have a wall. Cotton shari lifnei gadol. So then what happens is the smaller rooftop is allowed for the people of the larger rooftop to carry in it. And the reason is because the smaller rooftop becomes tough to the people in the larger rooftop, because right now the people of the smaller rooftop didn't put a wall around their rooftop. Why not? Why didn't they put a wall? That shows that they're not interested in using the rooftop. In order to use your rooftop safely, you have a wall. The people of the smaller rooftop didn't make a wall there. So if they didn't make a wall there, they show their intent that they're not interested in using their rooftop. So therefore, that smaller rooftop is not a separate area of a use of another person. So the people on the larger rooftop could use it. It's open to them. They could use it. And the people of the smaller rooftop cannot use their own rooftop. They didn't put up a wall there. And for sure, they can't use the larger rooftop. That's what I said. That's what Rav Yosef says. That's what I said. So the conclusion of all of this is, Rav Yosef says, I never heard what Shmuel said, that there's a concept of good asik when there's not mechitzas anikares. That I never said. This is what I really said. Now, based on this last point that we learned over here, the Gemara brings a similar thing. When you have a situation where a person has a chotzer or a person has a rooftop and he's showing his intent that he's not interested in using this. Zog the Gemara. Okay, this is the reason that I just explained outside. Yeah. My timer, what's the reason that the people of the larger rooftop could use it? Kivin the loy ovid mechitzeh. Since the people of the smaller rooftop did not make a mechitzeh for their small rooftop, sluki sliku nafshayu mehacha, they totally removed their intent of using this rooftop, and therefore they can't use it at all. Only the people of the larger rooftop can use it. Like Rav Nachman said, asa sulam kavu legagay. You made a ladder that you can climb up to the roof, and nobody else has a ladder that they made to go up to the roof. So they're not going up to the roof. Maybe they have a ladder, a temporary ladder. They go up sometimes, but you made stairs to go up to the roof. Huta b'chol hagagin kulam. So you are the only one that has a permanent access to the roof. You're the one that could use the entire rooftop and nobody else. There's no other reshus over there that you have to be worried. Erev Chatzeris, you have the permanent use and no one else has permanent use. Amar Abaye, a similar halacha, Abaye says, Bana aliyah al gabe beisai. So again, you have rooftops, and this is going to be picture Tafkuf Lamed Gimel. You have a few rooftops that are near each other, and there's no walls around them. And you build this like small attic on top of your rooftop, and in your small attic, you build also an opening, like a little Pesach to go out, which the Gemara calls a daka. Okay, so what does that show? Amar Abaye, Bana aliyah al gabe beisai. You built a small attic on your rooftop. And you make this small opening of 4 tfachim, so you are not going to be allowed to carry on all areas of the rooftop because you're the only one that intends to use it. And you make your opening facing, this is an important detail, you make your opening of your little attic facing the entire roof. So there, you're the only one that shows the intent to use the whole area and nobody else. But Rava says, sometimes the halacha is going to be that when you make this little attic and you make a little opening, that it's going to be asur for you to carry there as well. Everybody will agree that it's asur for you to carry there. When would that be? The avida lohu tarbitza de beisei. Lahadi tarbitza de beisei. Okay, take a look in picture Tov Kuf Lamed Daled. What this means is when you made your little attic on top of your house, you made an opening. Where did you make that opening of your little attic? Facing to where? Facing to your garden. So what is the person's intent? He wants to have an area to be able to guard his garden. He's not making this little attic to be able to walk out and use the entire rooftop. Then what we say is, you're only making this little attic over there like as a watchtower, just to be able to go out over there and watch, but you're not intending b'chlal to use the rest of the garden. So this is the same concept that we said before. When you have an area that one person does something to show that he has the permanent access, and the other people don't have permanent access, so then you don't have to make an Erev Chatzeris l'kula alma, even according to the Rabbanon that said that each gag is a reshus for itself, because you're the only one that shows that you want to have permanent access to this area.